If you need to pass GED Math, know that I made this video to try to make it easier for you. I put together practice questions to help you prepare for what you can expect on the real thing, and I've put many tips, tricks, and strategies to help make the process easier for you in this video here. And ultimately, the goal is to help you pass GED Math faster so that you can move ahead to bigger and better things in life like college or a better job, joining the military, whatever your goal happens to be, and we're going to get started right now. Thank you for watching. Rick watched 1/6 of a movie on Saturday and half of the same movie on Sunday. What fraction of the movie does Rick still have to watch to finish it? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the easy way to do this with a calculator is to come over here to this button that says N over D, and I'm going to press it. And then what I want to do is I want to enter 1, and I'm going to press this arrow right here. That's going to take me to the bottom of the fraction, and then I'm going to press 6. So I've got 1 over 6. I push that arrow again, and I want to find my addition sign and press that. And now I'm going to come back to the key that says N over D and press it. And so now I want to enter 1 and use this arrow again, and that takes me down to the bottom of the fraction, and I press 2. So I've got 1 over 6 plus 1 over 2. I press enter, and that gives me 2 over 3. But we're not done yet because we have to do 1 minus 2 over 3. Okay, so basically I want to press 1, find the minus sign here, and come back to this N over D key. I'm going to press 2, put the arrow right here to take me down to the bottom of the fraction, and then hit 3. Hit the enter sign here, and it gives me the answer as 1/3, 1 over 3. Kendra just got her pilot's license and wants to fly from Houston, Texas to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If the two cities are 1,340 miles apart and she flies at a speed of 350 miles per hour, how long will the flight take? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so there are several different ways to look at this question here. Basically, what it boils down to is you're going to take this 1,340 miles and you're going to divide it by 350, and that's going to get you the correct answer here. But let me explain why that makes sense. So essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1,340 miles, and I'm going to take this information, this 350 miles per hour, and I'm going to set that up, but I'm going to set it up where we have 1 hour on the top of the fraction, and the 350 miles I'm going to put in the bottom of the fraction. All right, so all I'm doing is I'm taking a 350 miles per hour, and I'm flipping it upside down, so I've got 1 hour over 350 miles. Now, why would I do this? Well, the reason I'm doing this is because when I do my division, when I do 1,340 divided by 350, miles divided by miles cancels out. All right, so the miles are going to drop out of the question here, and whatever answer I get, the units are going to be in hours. All right, so I do 1,340 divided by 350, and the answer gives me 3.8, something like that, which falls between 3 and 4 hours. So D is the correct answer. So hopefully this makes sense. Tom plays video games professionally and competes in tournaments for a living. According to the figure above, the percent Tom plays Fortnite is how many times the percent he plays Street Fighter. So let me show you this in case you can't see it. So this right here is 40, this is 5, this is 25, this is 10, and this is 20. And so the only numbers that you need are this 40% and this 10%. All right, and I'm just writing these out just in case it's hard to see if you're on a device like a phone with a small screen. All right, so let me give you a chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so for this question here, basically what you want to do is you just want to do 40 divided by 10, which is 4. All right, and if you were able to just look at this and just say, well, that's 40, that's 10. 40 is 4 times 10. All right, you could have just done that, and without even doing the calculation, you might have seen the answer. All right, but either way, the answer here is 4 times. Are you training hard, Tommy? Which answer choice best approximates the volume of the figure above? Is it A, B, C, or D? And so just to save you some time, I gave you the 2 formulas you'll need for this question, but just know that on your test, what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to your formula sheet, you'll have to pick out which formulas you think you'll use, and you'll have to do that to get the answer right. But just to save you some time, I'm just going to provide them here since we're just practicing. So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so let's start off by calculating the volume of the rectangular prism. So this down here is our rectangular prism, and the formula is length times width times height. So all I'm going to do is do 25 times 10 times 14, which gives me 3,500. So now let's do the volume of the cylinder calculation. So it's pi r squared h. And in case you haven't come across this yet and you're studying, don't worry about it because I'm just going to tell you what it means right here. So this little symbol pi, it's approximately 3.14. All right. Now, in actuality, there's a bunch of other numbers that come after that 3.14. But for your test, I would memorize that pi is equal to 3.14. All right. Now, again, it's not technically equal to 3.14. There's a bunch of other numbers. But for your test, just remember for pi, you want to use 3.14. All right, so when I do my formula for the volume of a cylinder, I'm just putting this 3.14 in place of pi. Now, for r squared, I need to find my radius, which is 5 here, and I'm going to square it, which is going to give me 25. Okay, and now this h here, my h is 11. All right, so I just simply put the 11 in here. And so when I do this in my calculator, 3.14 times 25 times 11, all right, I get 863.5. All right, so the last step is to just take these two numbers and add them together. And when I do that, I'm going to get answer choice B. All right, so when all is said and done, B is the correct answer. A contracting company charges $30 per hour for each person working, plus an additional $2 for each mile driven to get to the worksite and back. If there are 4 workers working for 3 hours each and the total distance driven is 35 miles, what is the total cost? Is it A, B, C, or D? So let me give you a chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to look at this. Let me start by considering the fact that we've got 4 workers here. Okay, and they're each going to work for 3 hours. And we know that the company's charging $30 per hour. So I can set this up. So let me put $30 up here. And I know that, let me put the 1 hour down here. And I know that when I do the calculation, the hours will cancel out. And that's going to leave my answer for this part of the question in dollars. Okay, so essentially what you would do is you could do 4 times 3, which is 12 times 30, which is going to give me 360. Okay, but we're not done yet because we also have to figure in the distance here. All right, so it says plus an additional $2 for each mile driven to get to the worksite and back, and we know that the total distance was 35 miles. So we have 35 miles here. And we know that they charge $2 for each mile driven. So again, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to put my $2 up here. And I'm going to put my 1 mile down here because it's $2 for each mile. And so look at this. When I do the calculation here, the miles cancel out. So you're going to do 35 times 2. So 35 times 2 is 70. All right. So to get the final answer here, you're going to do 360 plus 70, and that's going to give you answer choice B, which is $430. A can of soup weighs N ounces. Without the can, the soup itself weighs S ounces. Which equation can be used to find the weight of the can, T? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so I'm about to show off my terrible drawing skills here. Let's say that this whole thing is the can, and let's say that all this down here is the soup. So we know that this liquid portion here, we know that if we just took all this liquid out and weighed it, we would know that S, all right, is the weight of that portion. Now, we know that the can of soup, right, so if we take the can and the soup, we know that altogether the weight of this is N ounces. And let's say that we just want to know what is the weight of the can, right? So if we take the soup out, what's left over? What's the weight of this can, all right? And that's what we're calling T. So we would say T equals the weight of the can and the soup together, which is N, minus the weight of the soup, S. All right, so C is the correct answer here. Thank you so much for sticking on the video, even though this drawing is terrible. Over the last 2 years, Jill watched many episodes of her favorite TV shows. The table below shows the number of episodes she watched for each show. What is the mean number of episodes she watched for all shows? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and we don't have any multiple choice answers. This is just for you to try to come up with the answer. So I'll let you pause the video now and try to figure this out, and if you get stuck, don't worry about it because we're just going to go over the answer. Okay, so for a question like this that asks what is the mean, all you're going to do is just take all of the numbers here and you're going to add them up. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to count up the total number of numbers we have and divide by that number. Now, I know that might sound confusing, but it's really not all that bad once we break it down. All right, so again, the first step is to just take every number in the set, which we've got 11, 22, and so on and so forth, and add them up. So let me do that first in my calculator. So when I add them up, I get 73. So that's the first step. So now I'm going to count up how many numbers we have here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers in our data set. So I take that 73 and I divide by 5. And the answer I get is 14.6. So hopefully you got that. I'm excited to announce that this video's first champion shoutout goes to a test taker who failed the test twice but ended up passing and says, after leaving high school 43 years ago, I am now a GED graduate at 60 years old. It's never too late to go back to high school and make your dreams come true. The second champion shoutout goes to a test taker who says, I wrote my last subject, math, today and got 170 out of 200. Now it's time for me to move on to bigger and better things. And I'm really excited for both these test takers and, I wish them the best of luck with whatever's coming next. If 1/6 of B equals 10, what is 2/5 of B? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so the way I would set this up, because it tells us 1/6 of B equals 10, I would do 1/6 times B equals 10. Now, if I solve this equation for B, that's going to help us figure out the second part of the question here. Okay, and when I say solve this for B, all I mean is get B by itself. So since it's 1/6 times B, what I can do is multiply by 6. And when I multiply by 6, the 6's cancel out, leaving me with just B on the left-hand side of the equation. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. So I have to multiply by 6 on the right-hand side as well. Now, we figure out that B equals 60. Why is it B equals 60? Because 10 times 6 is 60. But we're not quite done yet because we now have to take the second part, the 2/5, and what we can do is we can write 2/5 times B. Okay, but we now know that B equals 60, so really I can replace the B here with 60. So all I'm going to do is do 2/5 times 60. And that's going to give me the answer here. So when I do in my calculator 2 times 60 divided by 5, I get answer C. C is the correct answer here. Doug frequently goes out to eat. The table below shows the number of meals Doug has eaten at each of his favorite restaurants over the past year. Please find the mode of the number of meals Doug ate last year at restaurants. So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so this question is asking us to find the mode. So basically, all you do to find the mode is you just find the most occurring number out of all the numbers here. And we see that every number shows up once except for the 7s. All right, and since 7 shows up twice, 7 is the most occurring number. So 7 here is our mode. Hopefully you got that as the right answer. If not, hopefully it makes sense. If 4x minus 20 equals 12, what is the value of x? Please write your answer in the box below. Now, obviously, you can't really write your answer through the screen, but I'd like you to pause the video, try to solve this, and imagine what answer would you write through the screen if you could. And if you get stuck, don't worry about it. We're just practicing. Okay, so let's talk about this question. So this is a fairly standard kind of algebra type of question for the GED. And like I said, if you had trouble with this, don't worry about it because we're just going to go over how to do it. And if you think you got this right, then we'll see what the answer is in just a second here. So basically, the strategy for a question like this is to solve the equation for x. And that's just a fancy way of saying we want to get x by itself on one side. So since we have 4x minus 20 equals 12, the first move I'm going to make is I'm going to add 20 here. Okay, so I see it's 4x minus 20. So I want to do the opposite of subtraction, which is why I'm adding here. All right, so I have minus 20 plus 20. They cancel out, so that's gone. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. All right, so I'm going to add 20 over here. So let me rewrite all of this now. And when I rewrite, I'm going to have 4x equals 32. So I have 4x. So that's really 4 times x. So what is the opposite of times? The opposite of times is division, or to divide. So I'm going to divide by 4. All right, now watch what happens. When I divide by 4 on this side, the 4's cancel out, leaving me with x, which is what I want. But the last step here is that I also have to divide by 4 over here. And 32 divided by 4 is 8. So 8 is the correct answer here. Back in 2007, Kelly's friend bought her an iPod Touch, a portable device that plays music and other media as a gift. Kelly loaded her iPod Touch up with songs which she listened to often until she lost her iPod Touch. Kelly just found her iPod Touch now, almost 20 years after losing it. The table below shows her 8 most played songs and the number of plays on each one before she lost the device. What is the median number of plays for all songs? So basically what you have to do is look at all of the numbers here in this data set and tell me what is the median. So let me give you a chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So whenever you're asked to find the median, the first thing I want you to do is always get in the habit of putting the numbers in order from smallest to largest. That's very important for the median. And one common mistake that people often make is they'll remember that the median has something to do with the middle number, but they'll come right to the data set and they'll start trying to look at the middle number. But before you do that, you have to put them in order from smallest to largest first. So median, put the numbers in order from smallest to largest first. Okay, now in this case, we've got 8 different numbers that we're working with here. So there's not just going to be one middle number that's going to stick out to us. So what we have to do is we have to take the 2 numbers that are in the middle, which in this case it's 19 and 20, and we have to add them up and divide by 2. All right, so basically all we're going to do is, again, put the numbers in order from smallest to largest. Since we've got an even number of numbers that we're working with here, take the 2 numbers in the middle, add them up, and divide by 2. All right, so we would do 19 plus 20 divided by 2. And I get 19.5. 19.5 is the correct answer here. If Jen travels at a constant 30 miles per hour in her car, how many miles will she travel in 1,000 minutes? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and if you get stuck, don't worry about it because we're just going to go over the answer. So the way I would set this up is I would start by putting 1,000 minutes right here, because we want to figure out how many miles she's going to travel. So what I want to do is start with this 1,000 minutes, and I'm going to multiply that by 60 minutes on the bottom down here, underneath 30 miles. All right, now why did I do this? Well, let me show you. All right, so we're told that she's traveling at a constant speed of 30 miles per hour. So per hour means 1 hour, and 1 hour equals 60 minutes. So all I did was I took the fact that she's going 30 miles per hour, but instead of writing 30 miles over 1 hour, I wrote 60 minutes because 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. And I set it up this way because I want the minutes to cancel out. All right, so if I do minutes divided by minutes, the minutes are gone, and our answer is going to be left in miles, which is what we want. So all you have to do is use your calculator, and you can do 1,000 times 30 divided by 60. And the answer is 500. So C is the correct answer. Consider the formula 4x equals 5y, parentheses z plus 1 parentheses. If x equals 5 and z equals 1, what is the value of y? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out. Take all the time you need. If you get stuck, don't worry about it because we're just going to go over the answer. So let me turn it over to you to pause the video and you can try it out now. Okay, so the first step for this video, for this question is what I would recommend you do is to start by just replacing the variables with the numbers. So what I mean by that is we know that x equals 5, so I'm going to come over here to this x and just replace it with a 5. All right, and this 1 right here, we know that z equals 1, so I'm going to come into the question, and where it says z, I'm just going to put a 1. So if I rewrite it, it would look like this. So we would then have 4 times 5 equals 5y, parenthesis 1 plus 1 parenthesis. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense so far. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come inside this parentheses, and I know that 1 plus 1 equals 2. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to take this 1 plus 1, and I'm going to rewrite that as 2. And at the same time, I know that 4 times 5 is 20. So instead of rewriting 4 times 5, I'm just going to put 20. Okay, so I now have 20 equals 5y times 2. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 and multiply that by this 5. And I'm going to rewrite yet again. So I'll have 20 equals 10y. So I have 20 equals 10y. So now I want to get this y by itself. So if I have 10 times y, if I divide by 10, the 10s will cancel out. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side as well. So 20 divided by 10 is what? Well, 20 divided by 10 is 2. And when all is said and done, I figure out that 2 equals y. So C is the correct answer here. Jared made a playlist for Becky to show her some of his favorite songs. His playlist includes 9 heavy metal songs, 5 classic rock songs, 6 rap songs, and 2 reggae songs. If she picks out one song to listen to at random, what is the probability she'll pick a classic rock song? So now is your chance to pause the video, take all the time you need, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So a good first step here would be to add up all of the songs here and get the total number of songs. So we would do 9 plus 5 plus 6 plus 2, which gives us 22. And so we're asked, what's the probability she'll pick a classic rock song? So since there's 5 classic rock songs on the playlist, that means that the probability is 5 over 22. All right, so in other words, there's 22 songs total. 5 of them are rock songs, so the probability she'll randomly pick one rock song is 5 out of 22. So A is the correct answer here. Suppose Nick flips a penny and Tasha flips a dime. What is the probability that both coins land on heads? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. When one event doesn't affect the probability of another, we say that the events are independent, and you can multiply the probability of each occurring to get the probability of both. So let me show you what I mean. So for Nick here, all right, Nick is going to flip a penny. Now, how many outcomes are there? Well, there's 2 outcomes. It could be either heads or tails. So the total number of outcomes we put in the bottom of the fraction. Now, the number of favorable outcomes, we put that up top. So we'd have 1 out of 2 is the probability of Nick getting heads when he flips that penny. Now, for Tasha here, all right, it's the same thing really, only we're talking about a dime this time, but it's the same thing. All right, when you flip a dime, there are 2 different possible outcomes. So that's why we put a 2 down here. And the probability of getting heads when she flips the dime is 1. So we've got the probability of Nick's coin flip landing on heads and the probability of Tasha's coin flip landing on heads. And since these 2 events are independent, we want to multiply them together, and that's going to give us the probability of both occurring. So when we multiply fractions, we just go straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4. So the probability that both land on heads is 1 out of 4, or 1/4. If 2x plus 6y equals 10 and 4x equals 7 plus y, what is the value of x? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So there are multiple ways to approach a question like this. What I think is an easy way to do it is to take this second equation. So let's first of all, this 4 x equals 7 plus y. Let me call this equation 2. And this first one here, this 2x plus 6y equals 10, let me call this equation 1. All right, so basically I'm going to take this equation 2 and I'm going to solve it for y. So in other words, I've got 4x equals 7 plus y. If I subtract 7 from both sides, I get 4x minus 7 equals y. Okay, so again, the first move I'm making here, I'm going to take equation 2, and I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. And that gives me 4x minus 7 equals y. All right, so hopefully you're with me so far. Basically, now what I want to do is come into equation 1, and now that I know that 4x minus 7 equals y, I can take this 4x minus 7 and come into equation 1 and replace the letter y with 4x minus 7. All right, so I know that this is a little bit confusing, so hopefully this makes sense. Let me write it out here. So I'm going to have, if I take equation 1 and write it now, I'll have 2x plus 6 times 4x minus 7. Okay, so hopefully you're with me so far. Oh, and this also equals 10. Okay, so hopefully you've got this so far. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 6, and I'm going to distribute it to the 4, and I'm going to distribute it to this negative 7. So I'm going to distribute the 6. That's a fancy way of saying I'm going to do 6 times 4 and 6 times minus 7. I have to consider this minus sign here. So when I rewrite, I'll have 2x plus 24x. Because 6 times 4 is 24, and I want to pull that x along for the ride. So now I'm going to do 6 times negative 7, which is going to give me negative 42. And this is all still equal to 10. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to add 2x and 24x. So I can't do 24 minus 42 because of this x right here. So I've got to work with like terms. And what I mean by that is everything that has an x in it, which is this 2 and this 24, I can only add those together. I can't do 2x minus 42 or anything like that because they're not like terms. So basically 2x plus 24x, what's 2 plus 24? That's 26. And I just bring that x along for the ride here. Okay, and now with this 42 here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add 42 to both sides of my equation. Because this is 24x minus 42, so if I add 42 on this side, I get rid of the 42s. All right, and if I add 42 to this side, I'm going to get 52. So I have 26 equals 52. So let me rewrite that where I have a little more space. I've got 26x equals 52. And so to get this x by itself, I want to divide by 26 on both sides of the equation here. And when I do that, I figure out that x equals 2. So this is a little bit complicated here, but the final answer is x equals 2. 4 raised to the power of 3 equals which of the following values? Is it A, 2 times 6, B, 8 times 8, C, 4 times 6, or D, none of the above? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the best starting place for understanding this question is to understand what 4 raised to the power of 3 equals. So 4 raised to the power of 3 is the same as 4 times 4 times 4. And 4 times 4 times 4, if we put that in our calculator, we'll see that that is equal to just simply 64. Now, a common mistake would be to think that 4 raised to the power of 3 really equals 4 times 3. And if you did this, don't feel bad because this is a really common mistake to make. But I'm just pointing this out so that hopefully you remember for your test that in a case like this, 4 raised to the power of 3 equals 4 times 4 times 4. So again, if you made this mistake here, don't feel bad. That's a really common mistake that a lot of people make. But just know for your test that this is how you'd want to do it, 4 times 4 times 4. So the next thing we do here is we're going to check which one of these is equal to 64. All right, so we can check 2 times 6, that's 12, so A is not correct. And we can check B. 8 times 8 is equal to 64, so B is the correct answer here. And if you had a different strategy for figuring this question out, let me know down below. There's in math, there's often multiple ways to look at questions. Pancakes or waffles? That's a close one, but I'd go pancakes. Mountains or ocean? Probably mountains. Pizza or tacos? That's a really hard question. My favorite pizza is Hawaiian. I like pineapple topping. Taco Bell is also really good. I'd have to go pizza though. That's close though. Josh works at a fast food restaurant. Josh is required to ask all customers if they want to add something from the bakery to their order for 99 cents. If Josh took orders from 134 customers, and of those who ordered, 35 added something from the bakery to their order, what percent added something from the bakery? Please write your answer in the box below. So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need. Whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So this is the formula that I would recommend you use for percent questions on the test. And of course, if you're able to just look at this and just know what you need to put in your calculator without using a formula, that's fine too. In fact, that'll probably save you some time on the test. But for beginners, and not necessarily just for beginners, for anyone who wants kind of a guaranteed way to get percent questions right, assuming it's not like a trick question or something like that, but for a standard percent question, this formula is going to work. And if you want to use this formula, all you have to do is put the numbers in correctly. And so it's fairly easy because the whole is always going to be the bigger number. So in this case, 134 is going to go into the formula for whole, and the part is going to be the smaller number. So in this case, 35 is going to go into the formula for part. So all I would do is I would write 35 over 134 equals percent over 100. Okay, and so really all we're going to do here is, first of all, we want to get the percent sign by itself. So how we do that is we're going to multiply by 100 on both sides. All right, so the hundreds cancel out here, leaving the percent, and we've got to multiply by 100 on this side as well. So the calculation would be 100 times 35 divided by 134, and the answer is about 26.12%, something like that. If you just left this as 26%, that's fine too. I didn't tell you how to round or anything. So as long as you got 26, something like that, you probably got the right answer. And like I said, obviously, if you're able to just look at this and just know to do 35 divided by 134 times 100, then that's fine too. But like I said, it's feel free to use this formula as much as you want for the test, as long as they don't give you some kind of really weird curveball or a question with a twist. As long as it's just like a standard percent question, kind of like this formula is going to get you the right answer. Erica has several bills to pay off. If Erica wants to pay off the bills in order from largest to smallest, in what order will Erica pay off her bills? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so really one thing that I want to point out here for questions like this, whenever it's asking you to find something from largest to smallest or rank something from smallest to largest or anything like that, just double check that you're actually ranking them from largest to smallest, all right? So it's really easy to just read this way too fast, and you've got the stress of that time ticking down on the test, and just for some reason read this really fast and read it wrong and think that you have to find the bills in order from smallest to largest, which obviously that's going to get you the wrong answers. A is the answer here. All right, the hospital bill is the most expensive. The second most expensive is the credit card. The third most expensive is utilities, and phone is the least expensive. So hopefully this makes sense. Shirley has picked out the next 5 movies she will watch, but has not yet decided in which order she will watch them. How many possible orderings of the 5 movies are there? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance, as always, to pause the video, take all the time you need with this, try it out. If you get stuck, don't worry, because we're just going to go over the answer. So I'll let you try it out now. So when Shirley goes to pick out the first movie out of the 5, all right, she has 5 different movies to choose from. So let's say she takes that first movie and watches it. On the next try, on the next pick, she's got 4 different movies to pick from. All right, so let's say she watches another movie. Now she only has 3 movies to pick from. And then after she watches one more, she only has 2 movies to pick from. And then after that, she only has 1 left. You do 5 times 4 times 3 times 2. All right, that's going to give you 120. So A is the right answer. And this is all you have to do for a question like this.
What is the equation of a line that passes through the points 12, 10, and 10, 14? Is it A, y equals 914x minus 11, B, y equals 22x minus 4, C, y equals negative 9x plus 13, or D, y equals negative 2x plus 34? So just to save you some time since we're practicing right now, I gave you the two formulas that you'll need to answer this question. The first is the slope formula. This little m symbol just means slope, and its slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And the second formula that you see right here, this is the point slope form of the equation of a line, and I just called it point slope equation to save space. It's y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. Okay, so let me give you a chance now to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so in this case here, basically, whenever you have a question that asks you to find the equation of a line, and it's set up just like this, what you always want to do is start by using the slope formula in order to calculate the slope. Okay, and then second, we're going to use the point slope equation to get our final answer. So let me look at my first pair here. So I've got 12 and I've got 10. Now, the first value in a pair is always an x value. So let me call this x1. And the second value in a pair is always a y value. So let me call this y1. So my x1 is 12, my y1 is 10. Now let me come over here to this second pair. All right, so the first value here is always going to be an x. So I'm going to call this first value, or the 10, x2. And the second value in a pair is always a y. So this 14, I'm going to call that y2. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to use the slope formula, and I'm just going to plug in the numbers that I've labeled here. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, don't worry, because I'm going to show you right now. So the formula calls for y2 minus y1. So what is my y2? Well, we already know, because I labeled it, that my y2 is going to be 14. And what's my y1 going to be? Well, we already know, because I labeled it, that my y1 is 10. So I'm going to do 14 minus 10. All right. Now I'm going to divide that by x2 minus x1. Now, what is my x2? Well, we can see right here that my x2 is 10. And my x1 is 12, because I already labeled 12 as x1. Okay, so I'm just going to set it up like this. You can use your calculator, you can do it in your head, whatever's easiest for you. 14 minus 10 is 4, and 10 minus 12 is negative 2. And I can simplify that to just negative 2. The slope is negative 2. So now that I've got this figured out, all right, we're done with the slope formula, and we're going to come over here and we're going to use the point slope equation to finish out the question. So we've got y minus y1. Well, what is my y1? Well, we already know that my y1 is 10. All right, so let me write this out here. So y minus y1, we know that my y1 is 10. So I'm just going to put 10 right here. All right, so this equals my slope, which we know is negative 2. So negative 2 goes in here for slope. All right, times x minus x1. All right, so I just put the x right here. Minus my x1. What is my x1? My x1 is 12, all right? Because remember, the first thing we did here was label that as 12. All right, so now I have this set up. I've got y minus 10 equals negative 2 times x minus 12. And the name of the game here is to get this y by itself on the left-hand side of the equation. So some people, they like to take this 10 and they would want to add the 10 over here first, and that's a perfectly fine way to do it. It's going to get you the same answer, all right? So if you like to add this 10 over here first, that's perfectly fine. You can do it that way. I actually like to just do the work on the right-hand side first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this negative 2 and distribute it to the x. And I'm going to distribute this negative 2. So I'm going to do negative 2 times x. I'm going to do negative 2 times negative 12. All right, and so what's going to happen is I'm going to get y minus 10 equals negative 2x plus 24. And this is a really common spot for error, and this is a tricky question overall. So, believe me, a lot of people have trouble with these types of questions. So if you made this mistake, don't feel bad. I'm just pointing it out now so that so you can hopefully maximize your score on the test. Remember that when you remember the negative signs is what I'm trying to say here. So when you do negative 2 times negative 12, remember that the answer is going to be positive 24, all right? So just keep that in mind. And basically now we've got y minus 10 equals negative 2x plus 24. All we have to do is add 10 on both sides of the equation, and that gets us the answer. Okay, so the final answer here is going to be D. Y equals negative 2x plus 34. Jerry owns a record store. The table shows how many sales Jerry had on Tuesday between 9 a.m. and noon. Choose the graph below that matches the data in the table. Basically, let me give you a chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so basically what we have here is this chart right here, and this tells us the record sold at the hours starting with 9 a.m. So in other words, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., there were 25 records sold. The hour starting with 10 a.m., what that really means is basically between 10 and 11, Jerry had 44 records that were sold, and from 11 a.m. to noon, there were 35 records sold. So we've just got to pick out which graph below reflects this situation. And if we look at, for example, A, all right, we see that the records sold between 9 and 10 a.m., it looks like it's between, so if this is 30 right here, and this right here, somewhere around here is 20. It looks like this is somewhere in between 20 and 30, basically right in between. So I would say that this is 25 right here. And if we look at this line right here, okay, we see that this is 40 right here. This is 50 up here. So the value of this right here, I would say it's somewhere between 40 and 50. It's almost halfway in between, maybe a little less. It's kind of hard to see. So I would guess that this is about 44 right here. And this value right here, okay, so again, we see that this whole line right here, this is 30. And we know that this right here is 40. So this value looks like it's somewhere in between. It's kind of hard to tell, but I would guess that that's probably 35. All right, so if this is 25, this is 44, this is 35, that means that A would be the correct answer here.
What is the seventh number in the sequence below? A, B, C, or D? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so basically, let me show you the pattern here in case you didn't see it. All right, so the pattern here is basically everything is being multiplied by 2 and then having 1 added to it. So basically 3 times 2 equals 6 plus, and then if we take that 6 and we add 1 to it, all right, we get 7. Okay, so same thing here. So if we start with 7 and we double it or multiply it by 2, all right, that gets us to 14. And adding 1 to that gets us to 15. Okay, so again, the pattern here is everything's doubling and then we're adding 1 to it. So when we get to this 127, we would do 127 times 2, which gets us 254, plus 1 gets us 255. So B is the final answer here. Okay, so here's the question. Which of the following gives the perimeter of the right triangle below? And please ignore this word that I scribbled out here. This was a little typo I made. Which of the following gives the perimeter of the right triangle below is the question. Thank you for your patience. And the answers are A, B, C, or D. So which one is the answer? I'll let you pause the video, try to figure that out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so whenever you see the words right triangle, or if you see a right triangle, and a giveaway that you have a right triangle is you'll often see this kind of little box thing on a triangle. This question didn't have that in it, but if you ever see that or see the words right triangle, you probably have a right triangle, okay? Which is your clue that you're probably going to use this formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared at some point. And this formula is going to be on your formula sheet, okay? So I know I'm going over this kind of fast, but this is a Pythagorean theorem question. So if you have trouble with this question, I would recommend reviewing the Pythagorean theorem. I'll try to remember to put a link down below to a video I have on that topic. If I forget, please just remind me. But basically, whenever you see a right triangle or see the words right triangle, that's usually going to be a clue that you want to use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay. So in this case here, we want to find out what x is. And if we find out what x is, we know which of these is going to give the perimeter. Because to get the perimeter of this triangle, all you have to do is add the sides up. So you do 3 plus 8 plus whatever this side is. And we don't know what the side is right now. So that's how we have to solve this question.
And to find what the side is, we're going to use this formula up here. All right. So I know this is a little confusing. I know I'm going over this a little bit quickly. Okay. But let's see how we would do it. So 3 is my A here. 8 is my B. So using this formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we want to first do 3 squared because 3 is a. All right, so 3 squared is just 9. And my b here, b is 8. So what is 8 squared? 8 squared is 64. So I'd have 9 plus 64 equals c squared. Now 9 plus 64 is 73. Okay, so I have 73 equals c squared. Now, here's the thing. In order to get just c, what we have to do is take the square root of both sides here. All right, and this is a common source of confusion that a lot of test takers have. All right, a lot of people will think that in order to get c here, what you have to do is do 73 squared. So if you thought that, don't feel bad by any means, because that's a really, really common mistake. In fact, that's one of the most common mistakes I've seen in my several years now of doing this on YouTube. So if you thought that, don't worry about it. I'm just pointing this out to you so you can hopefully maximize your score on the test, all right? So in a scenario like this, what you want to do is take the square root of both sides, all right? So if you take the square root of both sides, we will see that the square root of 73 equals c. All right, so this missing side here is equal to the square root of 73. So now when we go to find the perimeter, all we would do is we would do 3 plus 8 plus the square root of 73. And if we added these up, that would give us the perimeter. So C is the correct answer here. Competitors on a TV show must run across a platform and jump over a 5-yard foam pit to reach the next platform. If the total distance of this segment of the course is 150 yards, there are 4 platforms and each platform is the same length. How long is each platform? Is it A, 88 yards, B, 15.22 yards, C, 33.75 yards, or D, none of the above? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so basically what's happening here is the competitors on this TV show are going to start on a platform and jump over a foam pit to get to the next platform. And what we know is that each of these foam pit, or the gaps, the foam pit sections are the gaps in between the platforms, all right? We know that they're 5 yards each, and we see that there are 3 of them. We can do 3 times 5 because we've got 3 of these segments and they're 5 yards each. Now, we know also that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 segments here, or 4 platforms that are all the same length, but we don't know what that length is. So we can say 4 times some length x for the platforms. All right, again, because we have 4 platforms, they're all the same length, but we don't know what that length is, so we're just going to call that length here x. All right, and we know that this is equal to 150 yards. All right, so again, all I'm doing here is I'm setting up my equation, and my equation is 3 times 5 plus 4x equals 150. All right, again, 3 times 5 is because there are 3 5-yard foam pit segments, and the 4x is because there are 4 segments that are equal in length. We don't know what the length is, that's why we have the x, and we're told that this whole segment is 150 yards. All right, so hopefully this makes sense. All right, so now let's do some math here. The idea is to get x by itself. That's going to tell us the answer. So 3 times 5 is 15. And we now, if we rewrite this, we'd have 15 plus 4x equals 150. So now what we want to do is subtract 15 from both sides of our equation. So we subtract 15 from both sides here. We're going to see when we rewrite. So let me rewrite up here that we'll have 4x equals 135. Now, since it's 4x, we want to divide by 4. That's going to cancel the 4's out and give us just x, which is what we want. But whatever we do to one side, we also have to do it to the other side as well. So we have to divide by 4 over here as well. Now, 135 divided by 4 is 33.75. So the final answer here is C, 33.75 yards. If the ratio of Cleveland Browns fans to Cincinnati Bengals fans at the Columbus Metropolitan Library in Columbus, Ohio is 5 to 4, and there are 25 Browns fans, how many Bengals fans are at the library? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so for a question like this, the way we get this right is we want to take the fact that we see this little 5 to 4 ratio. We want to take that, and I recommend writing that as a fraction. Okay, so 5 to 4, let's write that as 5 over 4. Okay, and let's set that equal to 25 over x. Now, if you're wondering why in the world did I set this equal to 25 over x, let me explain. So we know that there were 5 Browns fans at the library for every 4 Bengals fans that day. All right, and we know that there were 25 Browns fans. All right, so again, the 5 corresponds to this 25 over here. All right, and so the X down here represents the number of Bengals fans at the library that day. But since we don't know what that is, all right, what we want to do is solve this equation for X. So we want to get this X by itself, and that's going to tell us how many Bengals fans were at the library that day in Columbus. All right, so basically what you can do here in this situation is cross multiply. So we can do 5 times X, which would give us 5X. And we can do 4 times 24. All right, 4 times 24 gives us 100. So after we cross multiply, we get 5x equals 100. So we want to divide by 5 on both sides here. And what we see is that x equals 20. Now, I was at the Columbus Library about a week ago, and they have a really, really good kids section that I took my daughter to. We also went to the North Market in Columbus, had a really great time. I had one of the best burger and fries I think I've ever had. But anyway, I had a great time in Columbus, and that inspired this question. If the ratio of soccer players to cross-country runners at a high school is 2 to 1, and there are 18 cross-country runners, how many soccer players are there? A, B, C, or D? So now is your chance to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so basically here in this case, this is very similar to the question that we just did, but it's a little bit different here. So let's take this 2 to 1 ratio and let's write it as a fraction. So we have 2 over 1, all right? And this time we're going to set this equal to x over 18. Now, why is it x over 18? Well, in this case, we're trying to find out the number of soccer players. All right, we don't know how many soccer players there are, but we know that the number of soccer players is going to correspond to the 2. All right, and on the other hand, we know that the number of cross-country runners is 18. That corresponds over to the 1 in the ratio. So this is how we set it up. And really, all we're doing here is we're going to do 18 times 2. And you can do 1 times x, but there's really no point in doing that because 1 times x is just x. But anyway, the answer here is 36. All right, so 36 gives us 36 is the number of soccer players. So the correct answer here is D.
In most of my videos, I pick out what I think the hardest question in the video is, and I call that the Champions Challenge question, and I'm about to reveal the Champions Challenge for this video right now. Let me know down below in the comments if you disagree and think that one of the other questions was harder. On a graph, suppose that the slope of a line is 1.5, and that for point A on the line, the x-coordinate is 4, and the y-coordinate is 10. Also, for point B on the line, the x-coordinate is unknown while the y-coordinate is 7. What is the value of the x-coordinate for point B? And to save you some time, I gave you the slope formula. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so I'll let you pause the video and try to figure this out. And just one more thing to note, on your test, you'll want to take this formula. You'll want to look on your formula sheet and you'll want to find the formula for slope. I'm just giving it to you to save time since we're just practicing. So now I'll let you pause the video, try this out. This is a tough one, so don't worry about it if you get stuck. We're just practicing, and then just unpause the video when you're ready and we'll go over it. Okay, so let's sum up the information that we know, since this is somewhat of a complicated question here. So for point A, all right, so we see that we've got point A right here. So for point A, we know that the x-coordinate, or the x1, is 4. Okay, and so the second number in a pair is always a y coordinate. So this 10 right here, all right, we're going to call that y1. All right, so first all we did was we just took this point A and we just labeled the 4 as x1 and we labeled the 10 as y1. So now let's do the same for B. And I think just taking the time to label this will help make this more clear, as this is somewhat of a complicated question here. So we don't know what our x2 is, so I'm just going to leave that as x. Okay, so this would be our x2, but we don't know what it is, so I'm just leaving that as x. And the 7 is our y2. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. If not, I'll put a link down below to a more basic case of slope and how to calculate it. I think if you look at that basic case and review that, this harder case will make a little more sense. But all I've done is I've just summed up the information that we have. So let's take this slope formula here, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and substitute in everything that we know. And we also know that the slope is 1.5. So I'm going to take this 1.5 and substitute it into the formula for slope. All right, so I have 1.5 equals y2 minus y1. So what's my y2? Well, I already labeled it, so we can see clearly that my y2 is 7. So it's y2 minus y1. Now what is my y1? Well, I've already labeled it right here, so my y1 is 10, so I just would put that in for y1. Okay. Now down here is where things get a little bit different, because I would normally plug my x2 in here, but we don't know what that is, so in place of x2, I'm just going to leave an x. So it's x2 minus x1. Now what goes in here for my x1? Well, I already labeled it, all right? My x1 is 4, so I just take that 4 and I plug it into the formula for x1. All right, so I'm just going to put a 4 right here. So to set this up, I have 1.5 equals 7 minus 10 over x minus 4. Now the name of the game here is to get this x by itself. Okay, so there's a couple ways to look at this here. What I'm going to do first is I'm just going to come up top here to the 7 minus 10, and I'm going to do that. So 7 minus 10 is negative 3. So I can rewrite this as 1.5 equals negative 3 over x minus 4. All right, so the next step here that I'm going to take is I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by x minus 4. Now you might be wondering, why in the world would you do that? Well, let me tell you. If I multiply this side by x minus 4, the x minus 4's cancel out, leaving me with just minus 3. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side as well. Let me pull this y2 out of the way here. That works. And so this 1.5 is going to get multiplied by x minus 4. All right, if you're having trouble seeing this, let me rewrite it down here. So what I have to do is take this 1.5 and I have to distribute it. In other words, I do 1.5 times x, and I'm also going to do 1.5 times negative 4, because I have to take into consideration that minus sign. All right, so when I do this, I'll have 1.5x, because I do 1.5 times x, all right, and then I do, and I'm using my calculator right here, 1.5 times negative 4 is going to be minus 6. So I have 1.5x minus 6, and this is all equal to negative 3. Okay, so I just cleared that all out of the way there. Hopefully you got that in your notes if you wanted to add anything to your notes. If not, hopefully it's not too much of an inconvenience for you to rewind after this. But basically, I just want to give us some room because we now have 1.5x minus 6 equals negative 3. So now we want to get this x by itself. So what I'm going to do, since this is minus 6, I'm going to add 6, and that cancels out the minus 6 from the left-hand side. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other. So when I rewrite, I have 1.5x equals just 3, because negative 3 plus 6 just equals 3. So now, since it's 1.5 times x, I have to do the opposite of times, which is division. So if I divide by 1.5 here, the 1.5's cancel out, just leaving us with x. And I've got 3 here. And if I do 3 divided by 1.5, I see that x equals 2. All right, so when all is said and done, the answer here is x equals 2. So this value here, all right, the x coordinate for point B is 2. The first handful of questions you won't be able to use a calculator on, but then after you get past those, you can use a calculator for the rest of the test. So what I recommend, as long as you feel